Hey, what up? It is Quinn Chess, and we're back in the chess.com pool of players, and we're playing against the Benoni defense once again. But this time it didn't transpose to a Banco Gambit. So we're playing Benoni with G6, and we're going to try to play very ambitiously this game. So I've noticed that in my last few games, I've been playing very solid. So I've been playing moves where you can't necessarily say there's something definitive wrong with the move, but at the same time, it's not really challenging the opponent to have to go outside of his comfort zone or have to look for a lot of counterplay, or in general have to kind of tap into a stronger level of play than he might be used to. And basically, what we're doing is we're allowing our opponents who are rated, you know, uh, did he just hang this pawn here? Let's take a look. Um, takes, and then he's got takes here on e4, I think is the idea. And we don't want to hang that pawn. So let's solidify with queen to c2. And then now we can think about taking on here. But even still, after takes, he can take here with the rook. So he's got a little bit of thinking to do, but so do I about this position. I was hoping to target the pawn on. Okay, so he decides to push the pawn. And let's just reel things back, maybe redirect to the g3 square. Try to maintain defense. So I played c takes d5 intentionally with the idea of generating more generating more of an imbalanced position, to really force myself to have to think outside the box a little bit. And he's going to push to g4, which is an interesting move for sure. But I think I have knight h4, maybe bounce the knight to f5 here. Take that juicy square. So let's go for that. And maybe we can even play f3 to solidify this e4 pawn further. But our opponent has played pretty solidly so far. He's been aggressive in taking up space, and he decides to take on e4 and exposing this attack on the knight. So that's a pretty good move. Definitely missed that. And I think we'll have to take, but we have this long diagonal to work with, so I'm not too upset about this. And also, there's a fork that could potentially get us the two bishops advantage. So let's go ahead and take with the bishop. He's going to take on a5 with his queen. And then we're going to solidify d1 with the rook on rook a to d1. And we'll just view that as a... Oh, we can't play rook a to d1 because of the bishop. Good thing I noticed that. Okay, so this position is getting quite sharp here for us. And queen d2 would also hang this bishop. Is knight to f5 a move? It does hang here, though. But it's going to be very hard to hold on to that pawn anyways, is my evaluation of the position. So the position is kind of crumbling a little bit for us, and we have to think about some counterplay. Let's go for the counterplay. So I just went to a Buffalo Wings restaurant with a friend of mine because I'm leaving town, and we ended up staying there for like 3 hours, just chatting about different things that we're interested in. It's a good friend of mine. We've been hanging out since we were uh, like 12 years old. So I've known him for a long time. It's good to be able to catch up with him once again, and it was kind of a send off dinner for me. So now our opponent is thinking about taking on d5, and that would put him up yet another pawn, and we would have a lot of weakness in the center, unfortunately, that we would have to deal with. I'm surprised that he hasn't played that move already, and he's deciding to go for a checkmate on h2 first. So I think we can maybe repel his bishop with f4 and then use that tempo to solidify. But that would destabilize this bishop. Whereas if we play here, it's got takes, queen takes with a check, and then this bishop is falling. So we don't like that. So I think we have to play f4 instead of g3. I think that was the move. And now after the bishop moves, we can play a move like bishop to f2 and hit the queen. We're definitely on our back foot here, backpedaling in this position. Also, the Jake Paul fight is happening tonight. I've been looking forward to that ever since it was announced that he's going to be fighting Anthony Joshua. By the time that you see this, it will be tomorrow, so the results of the fight will have already been known. But I'm looking forward to watching it. I might even actually buy Netflix for a month just to check it out. I'm interested to see how well he's going to do in the ring and how many rounds he survives. If not, even goes ahead and wins the whole thing. I'm noticing that my opponent played really quickly to secure an advantage, but now that he has the advantage, he's actually playing a little bit slower. So that's kind of interesting. I want to play here, but if he takes here, we take here. He's got to move his queen. Maybe he goes to here. And then he's got this battery again, so we don't really want to lose control. So let's play rook a to d1 instead. Oh, wait, no, the bishop is under attack. Okay, let's go bishop to f2. I feel like this move is forced for us. We have to play more actively here. But he's going to be able to line up this battery on e5, pointing to h2. Our opponent's definitely playing very well. And I'm just thinking of what possible counterplay we can even drum up. I mean, we have this long diagonal still. We can poke his king around, but we don't have control over the e file yet. We can play g3 at some point to drive his queen away. Okay, so he does decide to take there. And he's going to try to land a bishop on e5 soon. Can we play g3? Does that move work? Let's go for bishop takes on c5 first. So that's going to isolate his d pawn. And these pawns are also isolated. So even though he's up a pawn, his structure is damaged, but so is ours. And he's got prospects of an attack still with lifting the rook to e5 at some point, with bishop to e5 hitting this attack on the h2 square. So he does go to e5 with his queen, lining up against this pawn. Would I even welcome a trade here, or do I have a tempo to play? I don't have a tempo to play bishop. Let's just take this pawn. And we'll allow him to take here. I'm actually happy to get rid of the queens, honestly, and try my luck in the endgame. Okay, so he does give a check, and I'm going to drop that bishop. But his knight's hanging on c7. So let's go to h1. So the bishop is hanging here, but so is his knight. And he's going to give another check. Let's pull the bishop back to block it. Still have this square here to be concerned about, and then also maybe bishop to d4 at some point to be concerned about. But we've definitely been defending, so we have to take here. I mean, that's kind of forced, and we have an attack down the f-file now that he has to be worried about. So he challenges the queen, but his rook is hanging, question mark? I think he blundered that a little bit. That was just a straight up free rook on c8. So he is getting, more down on time. So I think that's maybe why he made that mistake. And now we have an attack on f7 as well. And here we can just pull our bishop back to defend. So now we're up a full rook, and the material is even in terms of pawns. But he's shown that he's a feisty opponent, so we can't underestimate the rest of his moves. I would like to potentially double up on the f-file and really hit this f7 pawn. So I'm thinking potentially a rook lift could be in store. Let's take on d6 and hit the bishop here on f6. Okay, so he wants to attack down the diagonal there. Let's defend this square so that his queen can't go there. He wanted to maybe build a battery and hit the h2 square, so we have to stop that. But he's got to be careful because his queen is defending his rook. So he doesn't want to move to a square where he's going to drop that piece. f5. Let's just play solid here. Let's play queen to f3. Let's just play solid here. I don't want any funny business. With the idea of taking here with the queen at some point and then maybe playing queen g4 check to force a trade. There's really not that many tactics. Okay, let's play rook a to e1. Let's move quickly. Now we have a time advantage to work with as well. And the rook can go to e8 with a check. So he decides to take on... let's just give a check. Push the tempo. And we're still pinned, so let's go rook to e3, threaten a check on g3. And just basically play moves quickly because we just don't want to lose on time here. I'm thinking queen g3 check. The bishop is pinned to the king, so we can't move it. We gotta be aware of that. And here we can play the check now, and he's got to take with his queen. Otherwise, his queen is hanging. So we're completely neutralizing his threats. And then we're going to take on f5 next. All of our pawns are on light squares, so we don't have to worry about him picking them off with his bishop or anything like that. Still got to watch for like back rank issues. And he wants to aim for our back rank, which is understandable. Let's just, again, play solid and bring the rook back. And we're going to try to line up a battery on the f-file. He wants to poke at my pawn. I'm going to push it to a4. Then we can bring the bishop to d7 to defend it. It's going to hit our rook. We'll just block that. And I don't think there's a checkmate. Okay, there we go. We won the game. All right, let's take a look at the game review. I'm guessing between 70 and 75% accuracy for me that game. Not my strongest performance, especially early on. I think positionally I didn't play that well. Yeah, so 72.9% accuracy. It says I played at a 1350 level. Let's take a look at the review here. Just go through all the moves basically. So I think, yeah, here I think we're still in the book. So everything up to this point has been fine. And here it doesn't like queen c2. It permitted the opponent to kick a bishop, and instead it likes jumping the knight back to d2 to defend the e4 pawn. So because we played c takes d5, we have to deal with this potential weakness on e4. And we didn't deal with it that well, which is why we lost that pawn. And c4 is the main idea by the opponent. And bishop f5 would have caused us some major headaches, and then he would have won a pawn on c5. So those are some tactics that are thematic in the Benoni defense that we have to become familiar with. But quickly after that, we went back to having the advantage when the opponent decided to weaken his own king side. So we had an advantage up to that point, and here it says just queen to d2 would have been fine. And after c4, just pull the bishop back. And eventually we're winning the h6 pawn as well. And I guess we're not concerned about doubling up our pawns here because his king is also pretty weak. But I would explore that line further. Bishop takes on f3. Centralize the knight with knight to f5 would have been better instead of taking back. So here just basically accept the loss of a pawn and play knight to f5 and solidify the position and also hit his bishop. So a few moves in a row that were inaccurate. And then knight to f5 costs yet another pawn. Instead, just rook a to e1 would have been better. Okay, so we put ourselves in the hole here with some of these moves. Yeah, so now he's up 2 pawns as a result, and he's got a major advantage. But yeah, he didn't take this d5 pawn, which I was surprised by. And bishop takes b4 was not the best. Here we end up a pawn, but what was that variation about? So play bishop to f2 instead of bishop to b2. Okay, I see. Queen to h4 check, not so good. And then from here on out, we played pretty accurately. Of course, with hanging the rook, we were able to survive. So not the best game positionally. We were not familiar enough with the tactics of the Benoni defense that were thematic, and we weren't fast enough in calculating them during the game. I was actually down on time for most of the game here. If you look at when we kind of like sunk into the hole with a few moves that were inaccurate, I spent actually a lot of time thinking about these moves. I spent um, 30 seconds thinking about this knight f5 move that eventually got a question mark. I was trying to drum up counterplay, but it was actually not very effective in trying to do that. And here we were at a significant disadvantage, like -2 to -3. But our opponent couldn't quite capitalize with the attack. We stayed resourceful. He spent a lot of time thinking once he had the advantage. And, conversely, while we were disadvantaged, we played a little bit faster because we were limited in our options. So sometimes that can happen where you can make up some of the difference in the clock just by not overthinking so much. And once we were able to even up on the clock more, eventually we did get our opponent to blunder once he had to like play faster, and he blundered a rook there straight up. And then after that, we were able to convert pretty cleanly for the rest of the game. So that was that game for you guys. We're still at an all-time high rating. We're still building that up. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and I will see you tomorrow.